Okay, great. So, do you remember actually going in the dark room and developing?
Well, I got my introduction to photography was as a Boy Scout, and I was living at home with my mother. We had a finished basement, and there was a small bathroom in the basement. One of the merit badges was to take a negative and print a picture from it. So I didn't have a darkroom, so I figured out how to get a dark. Went to the library. I remember now, this is the 50s, and there's no such thing as the internet or anything. You went to the library. So I found out how to build a darkroom. What do you need in the darkroom? Blah, blah, blah. I got all the ingredients. I set up a darkroom in this little tiny bathroom and developed my first picture. And I remember when I put it through the chemicals, and the first chemical and the second chemical and the third chemical in the water. And I remember, you have to remember, I'm a little boy, maybe 9 years old, and I'm watching this white piece of paper turn into a picture. And I was flabbergasted. I mean, when you're talking about a child mesmerized by science and what was happening, and I'm saying, oh my God, it's a picture. And then I pulled it out because it kept getting darker and darker, because I didn't realize the longer it sat in there, the darker it would get, and then it would disappear, and of course it was terrible. So I took it out, I put it in the next one, because they tell you put it here for a certain amount of time, and then the next one for a second. And anyway, so I kept doing it until I got it where I wanted. As soon as it looked like it was a normal print, then I hurry up and put it into the stop bath, and then you let it sit in the stop bath for a while, and then you put it in the water and you let it wash for half an hour. And then I took clothespins and I hung it up on a piece of string and let it drip dry. And that was my darker. And that was my first introduction to film, to photography. One day, I had my own apartment, and I'm driving along with my Austin Ely 3000 drop top. And a woman named Jackie Lee, who I didn't know her, I knew Geneva, who was her best friend. Didn't know it at the time, but she was her best friend, and I don't even remember how I met Geneva. Oh, through my sister. My sister knew her. And so she said, would you like to help me move? And this is in 1970, I guess. And I said, sure, why not? So I just bought a brownstone. She says, okay, fine, I'll help you. And she had just purchased 165 Washington. I didn't know her. I didn't know Bill Lee. I didn't know her kids. I had all of her kids. Later on, I met all of her kids. But so I helped her move. And after we moved, I'm walking around. I'm looking at I went upstairs and I says, so who's going to live upstairs? And she says, no, I'm going to rent it out. She says, okay, I'll rent it. She said, you want to rent it? And I say, yeah, that'd be great. She says, it's an attic. It's like got slanted this. She was looking at all the negatives. To me, it was great. It was great. So anyway, so I rented it. And from that point on, I lived in 165 Washington Park, which was the home of Jackie and Bill Lee. I hadn't met Bill yet. I met Bill shortly thereafter. Of course, we started moving and this and that. And one day he comes driving up with his Citroen, which is an amazing French car, with this slope, amazing slope, very, very distinctive car. And it was one of the early cars that had hydraulic lift, where the car could go up and down and whatever. And amazing car, but he liked it because he could put his bass in it. He could open up the back and put the bass slider right in. And he found out I was a photographer. See, you photographer? Oh, man, he was the coolest guy. He was everything you think a jazz guy should be. That's what he was. He was all of that and then some. So he used to sit downstairs. He'd invite me down to eat. And I mean, we just became a family. I used to be every day. You get Kurt, come on down. We're going to rehearse. I said, who's we? He said, the bass choir. And I went downstairs, and all these dudes with basses is filling up this downstairs of this brownstone. Like that. He was a real genius. Real genius. And Jackie Lee would be down there. She'd cook, and she'd make something for them. And, really traditional, that kind of wife, even though she wasn't traditional. She was a teacher in a private school called St. Anne's. And, very bourgeoisie, upscale, white, elitist school. And she was the professor there. That's when I met all the kids. Sankey, and Spike, and Joy, who now, of course, later on changed her name to Joie. The French interpretation, I guess, of joy. And there was Chris. And there was Sankey. Sankey was the youngest. And they'd be hanging out. They were all kids. And at the time, I think Spike was the oldest, and at the time Spike was maybe, when I was living with him, maybe 18. No, Spike was probably 20. 18, 20, around that. It's hard to say. I don't really know. But anyway, I met him. He was a really cool guy. And David, Kurt, can I see your camera? David loved photography. And I remember at some point, I was doing well, and I started making a few dollars. But anytime Bill wanted to go to a rehearsal or whatever, and I wasn't doing anything, he would say, Kurt, you coming? We're going to this, we're going here. He'd go to concert. He did the 1 Mile East concert at Lincoln Center. I was in front seat, front row. And I'm shooting, I didn't have to pay. I went to all the places he had them. I never had to pay. And I would just shoot. I shot, and I burned film. And there was never any money exchange or anything like that. But I'd give him pictures and whatever. And he'd say, oh, great. I did album covers for him. And I did the bass violin choir cover, and I did, he also had a brass quintet. That's not what it was called, but he had 5 brass players, and he had the same thing he did with the bass players. It was amazing guys, all of them. Just a special group of guys. So that went on for years. So needless to say, I burned through thousands of frames of film and 1,000 rolls of film. And so I got quite a lot of stuff with Bill Lee. And of course, like if you look at this picture here, like I said, that's Consuelo. And they were going over something that they had done, and I was hanging out. And they kind of posed for me there. They kind of, not pose, I don't want to say pose, because I never allowed them to pose. I said, no, just do what you're doing. And then I'll catch the real thing. And then this is just a beautiful picture. Beautiful picture. And that's brother, sister. But we became really good friends. And I became good friends with Spike. And all of them. Dave, and at some point, Dave had shown such an interest, and I think he got a cheap camera or whatever, and somewhere along the line, he ended up with one of my lenses. I think it was a 35 millimeter lens. I never got it back. I never asked for it back, and to this day, I have no clue. But it doesn't matter. That's one of those things you don't care. And by then, I was starting to get work, and I wouldn't say I was doing really well, but I paid rent on time. Rent was only $275 a month. Imagine that. Fantastic apartment, That was the beginning of a really good relationship with Bill Lee and his whole family. Oh, this is Bill Lee. This is Bill Lee, Spike Lee's dad.